Hey, welcome back to the Physician Leader Group video blog. I'm Ashley Wendel, physician executive coach and leadership consultant. And today's topic is about listening, because we know that listening is one of the most important and most foundational skills that a leader can have, right? So the question is, how do we get better at it? I want to dive into that a little bit today because we all tend to make the assumption that we're pretty good listeners, right? And that can be absolutely true, 100%. And there can be some complicating factors around that I want to think about. Because docs I'm coaching often say to me, I'm a great listener. I listen all day. I'm listening to my patients all the time. That's what I do. And I would say that's true. And there's also another way to be thinking about the listening that you're doing. And I like to consider this or call this the difference between diagnostic listening and active listening. Okay, so if you think about diagnostic listening, which you are doing all day long with your patients, what you're doing is you're listening in a way that takes you down a particular path, right? You've already got sort of the answers in the checklist in your mind of the question, what question is going to come next. So the listening that you're doing has a very prescribed intent, right? You're trying to narrow the options until you come up with an outcome or a diagnosis, basically, right? And that is a convergent form of listening. Okay. Whereas active listening really has the opposite intent. In active listening, you're really trying hard to listen to understand that person's point of view. You're trying to expand the discussion and create a dialogue, right? You're trying to be curious in a way. So that is a very different form. It's a very divergent form of listening, right? You're not in there to direct and guide and spearhead the conversation. You're in there to listen, to understand. And so it's a very different form of listening, and it can be hard to do. There are things that get in the way. And the other thing is we all kind of come into this with a very unconscious way of communicating, right? We have our style, the way we've done it, and we don't recognize that our listening or our lack of listening affects both us and the person that we're in conversation with. So I really want to look at that for just a minute or two. So I want to think about this in terms of what I call stingy listening versus generous listening, okay? And we are often, the perpetrators of stingy listening for a lot of different reasons, right? And what does that look like? Well, stingy listening is when you are not present, your attention is divided, you might be multitasking either physically or mentally, you've got a lot on your plate, you could be relatively disengaged from the conversation, right? And there are some other things that we do that are, I call pitfalls, that push us into that stingy listening category. One of them is when we interrupt people to give them our point of view or give advice, or, we jump in very quickly to the conversation. What that does is it takes the focus off, and, that person doesn't feel like you're truly listening to what they're saying. The second thing is that, and this is interesting because we often do this to try to relate and create connection, but what we do is we tend to jump in with our own experiences. Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That happened to me just the other day, and then we're off and running, telling our story. And while we think that we're connecting and we're relating, what we've done is we've shifted the focus of the conversation off of them and what they're trying to share with us and back onto ourselves, right? And there's actually a term for this. They call it conversational narcissism. And we're all, we've all done it, right? And it's not that you can't share your experiences or your point of view. The point, though, is you want to be intentional and not do it right away, not jump in too quickly with this, because all this does is that makes the other person on the other side of this suddenly say, well, they've stopped listening to me, they're telling about them, right? So it's a negative. Now, on the other hand, generous listening. What is generous listening, right? We've got an opportunity here to do this. So when you're a generous listener, you're present. Right? You're mentally present. You're all in. You're engaged. You're curious. You want to know more, right? And we can do this with a myriad of different behaviors, intentional behaviors, conscious behaviors. So give the person your full attention. Be present. Put the phone away. Just step away from the computer, right? Let them see that you're in the conversation, whether it be a 2-minute hallway conversation or an hour-long sit down in your office. It doesn't matter, right? But being fully present, making eye contact with that person, right? Appropriate positive eye contact, not too much, not too little, right? So make eye contact, face them, show them that you're interested. There's actually a lot of body language that comes to listening that we don't even realize that we are doing or not doing. Try very hard to resist that urge to take control of the conversation. And sometimes that means just biting your tongue, right? Just don't talk, give them space. A lot of times too, we want to fill silences. We're not as comfortable with silence. So resist that urge to jump in, take a step back, give them an extra moment. You'd be amazed at what you come out with. And be encouraging. Let them know you're interested in hearing what they have to say, right? Because how we do this is so critical. How we do this is so critical. And the benefits of good, generous listening is really reciprocal, right? It's reciprocal. You get better information. They feel heard and understood. And we need to be very intentional in this process, right? Hearing is not intentional, but listening is an intentional act. And it matters that we're intentional. So we need to do this. Why? Well, because it is well known in research that, communication breakdowns mostly happen because of poor listening, right? Poor listening is the root cause for so many communication breakdowns. And so we need to get better at it. So the next time somebody's needing you to listen to them, right? Whether it be a colleague or a staff member or a family member for that matter, right? I want you to stop. I want you to pause just for a second. And I want you to think about being present, being engaged, and really truly resisting that urge to get in there or jump in with your advice or your solutions or shift that conversation back to yourself, okay? Try to resist that urge to do that. And I know you can, and it just takes a little bit of intentional work and effort and practice, always practice. So I encourage you to start applying this intention now. And certainly just recognize that it's a work in progress, but you will start to see the benefits of doing this immediately. So again, as I always say, if you are interested in knowing more about how coaching can help you in this process or how it can improve your performance with yourself, with your team, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to talk to you. And until next time, be well, go out and listen, and take care.